everyone. Thank you for joining us in the Navigant Credit Union broadcast studio. So Trent Theroux has a very inspiring story to share with us, and you may have seen him, recognized him, heard from him before, but he recently published Filet to Finish. It's a semi-autobiographical account of his story from being paralyzed to the completion of an Ironman, which is insane. Just completing an Ironman is insane. So I'd like to welcome Trent into the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center to chat with us today. How you doing, sir?
Hey, Molly, how are you?
So good. Thank you so much
Great.
for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I started the book. I just got it the other day, so I started. I haven't had a chance to finish it, but I'm really looking forward to doing so. Filet to Finish, an awkward journey to the Ironman, which what an incredible subtitle there. Really excited to hear just about your story, to hear about the process behind the book.
Sure.
So thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, this is great. So why don't you tell us, let's start off by, why don't you just start by explaining a little bit about your journey, and then we'll go into the book.
I will. The story starts on a night in Narragansett Bay, and I'm in the water, the dark waters, and I reach around on my back and I touch what I think is an exposed rib. And this is just seconds after I was run over by a motorboat, and the propellers severed all the muscles on the left side of my back and carved out 5 pieces of my spine. And the journey begins from there, being left alone in the water.
The journey begins there, which is, I mean, it's incredible that you are alive, one. I mean, anyone who just hears that this happens to anyone, the fact that you survived, the fact that you are standing, and then the fact that, oh, you just completed an Ironman among several other accomplishments to your name.
That's a great ending. But when you're in the water, or I was in the water, and one of the thoughts that comes through me is, I never paid attention to those news reports of fishermen lost at sea before. I always saw the clips of the families crying, but while I'm in the water by myself and I'm bleeding out, but I don't know how much blood I'm losing because the water's dark. It makes me think about that. So getting to a good ending or towards a good ending is a wonderful part of the story. But I think the way the story unfolds, it's redemptive as well, because it's not until you have something that changes your life do you really appreciate the other things you have in it.
And so let's talk a little bit about the book. You just released it in April, so pretty new.
It is pretty new.
So congratulations.
Thank you
what an
very
accomplishment
much.
yourself writing a semi-autobiographical account. What's the deal with that?
Well, it's semi because I'm not as good of a lover as I make myself out to be in the book. So I was taking a little bit of liberty with that.
Okay, that's good. And you do get personal in this book. You do share some details about your life.
I think you have to when you write a book like this. People want to hear a real story, and so I left it as unfiltered as I could, and because I wanted to have people feel in the water with me. I wanted them to feel what it was in the hospital. I wanted them to be in the hospital bed with me when I couldn't walk. I mean, part of the story that changes is that I suffered a spinal cord injury, and I was paralyzed. And what's different about spinal cord injuries is that, unlike another illness where over time, and not to demean this, but with a spinal cord injury, your life changes in a second. And everything you know is over, and it just takes so much to regain and start again.
I can't imagine. I don't think many people can put themselves in the headspace to even begin to understand. So to get some insight by reading the book and just even having a conversation is a good place to start.
Sure.
So let's go back to that night to set it up to go into the book. Because people might be wondering if they're not familiar with your story. It happened in 2002.
It did.
Why were you out in the water?
Well, first off, we live in Rhode Island, and
so why not be?
It's gorgeous.
Right.
But I was also out at night. I had a long day at work, and I didn't get a regular exercise, a basketball game that morning, which I played a lot of basketball then, and I didn't. So I'd gotten home around 8:30 or so, and was keyed up after work, and I wanted some exercise, and I fortunately live right near the water in Barrington. I took my kayak out there, and it wasn't properly lit, and I made myself a target that way, and the people that hit me weren't paying attention either, and so we had an accident that left me in this state. What changes and what drives the story of the book is that while I'm in the hospital bed and I have to come to grips with not being able to walk for a while, not knowing if I could feel it. The doctor would come by and squeeze my toe and get no sensation. And I'll tell you something funny about being in the hospital, is that they give you a morphine plunger. And the morphine plunger isn't for pain. The morphine plunger is to relieve anxiety.
Oh.
So when the doctor comes in and squeezes your toe and says, "Can you feel that?" And you're like, "No." You know, and you lie there a little bit later, and then you see your mother-in-law come in. And she wants to know how you're going to support.
I can't see her either,
support her daughter. So, but the morphine helps with the anxiety. But when I started to have a little bit of peace and people had left the hospital, but I created a list.
Yeah, okay. And
it's a list of items that I wanted to accomplish in life. And a lot of people would call these bucket lists, right? Things you want to do before you die. And I don't like that term because I wasn't going to die. I made this list because I wanted to live. And so I consider the list to be coming attractions.
I love it.
So my first coming attraction was walk. It was pretty simple, right? Yeah.
But I mean, when you're in that state of mind and you're in that position, I mean, that's a big thing for a lot of people.
Huge. I mean, considering at the time I couldn't feel anything from my waist down.
Exactly. But pretty simple compared to the rest of the list. Okay, so continue.
From that perspective, it was simple the rest of the list, right? So the first was to walk, and then I wanted to climb a flight of stairs and lift my 2 young children, go to work, go to my wife, go see the Red Sox. And then I said, well, we've got to get a little more exotic here. And so I said, let's go, I want to run a marathon, or I want to climb a skyscraper. I want to do the Ironman. And the last one, as I was sitting thinking, I want to swim. I was a swimmer in college, and I hadn't swam at that point. It was 15 years. But I wanted to do some unprecedented swim. I hadn't figured it out at that time, which happened to be one of the swims that people might know me for, swimming to Point Judith at Block Island.
So let's talk about that list.
Okay.
You were able to cross some of those things off.
Well, in good fortune, I crossed them all off. I was able to walk after a period of time. What they found was that my cord wasn't cut or damaged. So what I had suffered was just trauma from that. But I did get to move through the list. And there are, in our book, Fillet to Finish, there are stories where you'll hear quite a bit of the pain of what it takes to move through that list. And then there are other funny parts of the list. I mean, I was in my mid-30s when this accident happened. Young enough man still with a pretty strong sex drive. Not as good of a lover as I write to be in the book, but still a strong sex drive.
The semi-part.
But so that was on my mind. I had to consider those things about, can I go back? And one of the funniest stories that we have is that, when my wife had finally said, yes, but you need permission.
From the doctor? Yeah, and make
sure
you
had to get
cleared?
permission. Well, she was afraid she was going to break me. So I had to.
Well, yeah. You don't want to send you back to the hospital.
Well, that was true. That was very true. I didn't want to go back being to this.
Yeah. She probably wanted some of that.
She might well. She might well. She'd probably buy some black markers.
Well, and that's what's neat about the book is that you provide flashbacks in here. So flashbacks. So how critical was that to you to be able to tell this story, flashbacks, as you're moving forward with the list and then providing flashbacks throughout your life?
Well, some of these events, running a marathon particularly, requires a lot of individual time and introspective time. And I admit that I changed as a person because of this accident. I became more humble. I became more caring about other people, empathetic, in ways that I wasn't when I was a younger man. And I experienced a lot of those epiphanies while running or swimming longer distances or biking by myself. And so some of the flashbacks in the book take me back to points in my life. Well, maybe I wasn't this wonderful guy, but this person that I was trying to transform into. And it brings me back to those.
Yeah. Well, as you're training for these type of events, you have a lot of time to think, a lot of time to process.
Sure.
I know a lot of people out there who are athletes, you're on the road running, you're on the road cycling, you have a lot of time to be thinking about stuff. Right. Or a lot of time to try to clear your mind, one or the other.
One or the other, one or the other, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about, just because you kind of mentioned this, trying to become a person that you thought you were, or becoming the person that a new type of person. You become more humble. You started caring more about others, becoming more sympathetic. Talk to me just about the emotional toll that the accident had on you. And then about the person, just talk about that. I mean, just being a dad and thinking about that and being a husband and just being a family member, I feel like something that can really impact your life in so many ways.
When you live your life one way, and the next day, it has to be different. And the simplest of things change. Your outlook. People have to open doors for you, where you would have opened it for them before. And it takes a different person to be able to say thank you, rather than wait for it and say you're welcome. That's different. To have people help you upstairs because you can't make it by yourself is humbling. When you're dependent on people to get to the bathroom, and those things change the way those happen, is humbling. And it just makes you appreciate people. And while I was in some of these journeys, what it also did is it toughened my resolve. Somebody had said to me the other day, I was giving a speech, and they had said, "Trent, you're a resilient person." And I would have said, "No, I'm not." And I don't think any of us know that we're resilient until the moment we have to be.
Yeah.
You know, it's until it's thrust upon us that we become resilient or realize we have to become. And as I go through this journey, as I detailed in Fully to Finish, I mean, there are points where there are obstacles I still have to overcome. Pain I still have to overcome, physical and emotional. That resiliency plays a large part of it. And I believe it's in most of us, and I really do. It's just that you need those type of events to draw them out, to find that person that you either are inside or you really want to be.
Let's talk a little bit about your foundation, because you've accomplished so many tasks, but you decided that doing those things for you, it wasn't enough. You know, which I think is an incredible experience, but you also wanted to help others. So you do motivational speaking, and you've created a foundation. So why don't you talk to us about that?
Well, I will. When I made the list, and I had the 10 items, I had gotten through the first 4 into the Ironman. So I'm at the doorstep of the Ironman, where the book takes us. The 10th item's not on in this book because it has a different feeling to it. When I got to the first 9, they were all about me, walking and lifting my children.
Which is very fair.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's very fair for you to want those things after you've suffered an accident.
But when I got to the last one, I said, you know, I've done all those items for me, and I wanted to give something back to a community that helped, supported me.
Yeah.
And so I contacted folks at Rise Above Paralysis, and they're a peer mentoring group that work out of Spalding Hospital.
Okay.
And anybody in the New England area that's had a spinal cord injury goes there for help. And what these folks do is, when you have an injury, people that have had the exact same injury, so if you have an L4 injury, somebody with an L4 injury comes and helps you and teaches you what life's going to be like. And what they expect is, a couple of years later, you'll come back and pay it forward.
Cool.
And when I heard about this story, I said, I want to help this group. How can I do it? And in a lesson I learned, when I came home from the hospital, I had to rent a hospital bed. We had to clear out our dining room because I couldn't climb stairs, so I couldn't go up to the bedroom. And so we cleared out the dining room so I could bring a hospital bed in. And the hospital bed cost $1,300 to rent, and which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate I was able to have the money to do that, but it got me thinking, what about people that have these injuries that don't?
Yeah.
And so I created the foundation to provide durable medical goods for people with newly spinal cord injuries. And I said, now I need a way to promote it. And that's where I created Back to Block, my first charity, to swim from Point Judith to Block Island to raise money. And we raised $50,000 for that effort. And I did the swim entirely backstroke as a sign of solidarity for the spinal cord community.
I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. How much did it mean to you to be able to do that, to raise that money, and to have the support, the care, the thought, the compassion of others, and to feel that supportive community behind you?
When I got to the site in the morning to swim, one of my good friends, David Estrada, who is the executive director, or at the time was the executive director of Rise Above Paralysis, there, and on rough terrain in his wheelchair to come out to watch. And there are plenty of people, 100 plus people, at 6 in the morning to watch me go off. And there were hundreds of people at Block Island, including Congressman Langevin and his crowd, that were and it was thrilling to know. I could hear the Block Island ferry boat tooting where they went by because they said, we're going to do that. I could hear it. It was knowing that people were coming to Block Island. That part was very motivating for me, but it was very satisfying when I went to an event for Rise later that year, and we were able to give away the first foundation grant.
So cool.
And it was used for a young man who needed a mattress.
Oh,
He was injured.
wow.
He needed a special mattress, and
Which is kind of how it all started.
it's full circle. And it filled me. It filled me with the want to go do it again.
That's
Yeah.
it's incredible, it's inspiring, it's motivating, and you do motivational speeches. You're keeping things going. I do have to ask you this. It's not on our notes, but I mean, what gave you the courage to get back in the water? I feel like that. I personally, I've talked to other people. A traumatic experience, wouldn't be able to do it, and you got back. Besides doing all those other things, you just got back in the water and swam. Miles.
Not quite. And a journey.
You didn't just to get back in the water.
A swim of 1,000 yards begins with the first one, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, just to have that mental, not only the physical strength, but the mental strength to be able to do something like that. How were you able to do that?
The part of the book we'll talk about, and not this particular story, but our family went on a camping trip up to Saco River. It was a couple of years later, and they wanted a kayak down the river. And I got into the kayak first time. That kayak, not the same kayak that was in the accident. And I just sat there, and it was a tall building I needed to leap to push myself out of the water because I could see the propellers, and that was a hard journey. Once you overcome that, I mean, I always think that mountains are majestic from a distance, right? When you look at a mountain 30 miles away, it's huge. But the closer you get to it, the more you're like, that's not as big as I thought it was. And these mental obstacles are the same way. I got into the water the first time. I had to overcome the obstacle that I have stripes. I mean, I'm like a zebra. I got stripes. And I had to overcome that vanity check, we'll call it, that people could see I'm striped before I got into the water. But eventually you overcome those, and you're able to do it one day at a time and move forward to your journey. If you have the goal, you can get there.
I love that. I think we'll leave it at that. Where can people buy this?
They can go to Amazon. You can find Filet to Finish. You can find it in book. You can find it on Nook, Kindle. It's easily available. Or you can find it on my website at Trent Theroux, THEROUX.com.
And I can't wait to finish it. I got partway through it last night, and I can't wait to get all the way with the rest of the way through it. So you're leaving it with us. You gave it to Kate, and I stole it from Kate.
Nice. You arm wrestle?
Yeah, she was like, "Molly, you have to read this," and I'm like, "Okay, I'm stealing it from you."
Perfect.
And then so we're passing around the office. Trent Theroux, amazing, incredible journey for you. Congratulations. You added the book to the to the list. So you're just keep what comes next.
Well, for a guy that, I failed English both times I went through the 5th grade. So I'm pretty happy that it took me only a few years to write this. But I have an itch to do another event.
Awesome.
And I registered to do the English Channel next year.
Oh, amazing!
And so I'll set up a charity for that.
Cool.
And my goal is to do it backstroke, and maybe just out of little vanity. The record is within my reach, I think, so I might be the fastest person across a backstroke. We hope. So a lot of training. If you have me again, the next time you'll see me, the plan is
come back and talk to us about it.
I have to gain weight.
Okay.
About 20 to 25 pounds. So I may look a little different to you the next time. You may not recognize me.
And we'll say that hopefully you don't swallow the salt water and gain weight that way.
Thanks.
Before you go, I'd like to take a picture,
I'd be happy to.
and then we'll get in touch so when you come back again.
Okay. Outstanding. Thank you, folks.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a true pleasure. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Okay, enjoy.